Welcome back. Today I'm going to try to solve some more chess puzzles over on Lichess. Let's just switch over there now. And again, the idea is for me to improve at chess, especially middle game tactics, but also opening and end game tactics, which seems to be the thing that I'm weakest at. I'm doing pretty good with openings, but it's just tactics. That's where I seem to fail most of my fail in most of the games where I fail. So let's just do this. I'm going to click on puzzles. Hopefully all this will show up correctly. As you can see on the left, my current rating is 2099. All right, I'm playing with the white pieces. The king has just moved out of check. This puzzle looks familiar. Have we had this one before? But let's see, what do I have? I have checks, which is the first thing that we look for. I can check this king by moving back to the 6th rank, a6, but then I think their king could just go back to where it was or move forward some other way. I could also check down here on b4. I could check with my knight, but I don't know what that would help. Let's see, if I checked with my knight, the king could not move back because my queen currently cuts off those squares. So let's say I check with my knight on b5. My queen cuts off all of those squares as well as these, and my pawn is also cutting off d5. So the queen could capture the knight, but then I would take their queen with my pawn. Or the king could move to c5. If the king moved to c5, I would not have a check here because their queen would be guarding that square. The king would have to go there, assuming that the queen didn't sacrifice itself. So king to c5. Would I have a follow-up check at that point? I mean, I would have the queen to a6 again, but that would allow... No, that wouldn't be check. Okay. Wow. Okay. Knight to b5 check. King goes to c5. Ooh, then I could take the pawn because the bishop wouldn't be guarding the pawn anymore because the king would be in the way. So I would have a check there, but that would leave the king the opportunity to take my c-pawn, which would leave the knight unguarded. And yes, I could take the bishop, but then the king could just take my knight. Or what about this? Wait, does that cut everything off? I almost didn't see that. Knight to e4 check. And again, my queen cuts off that whole file, this diagonal. The pawn's cutting off that as well. And my knight would be cutting there. So the only choice would be for the queen to take. And then I would take back. I think that's it. I win the queen for a knight. Oh, wow. 4 minutes. That's better than my average of 5 minutes. Good for me. Let's go to the next puzzle. Okay, I am playing with the black pieces. It looks like we're even on material. Both of us have a rook. Both of us have a dark squared bishop. Both of us have a queen. The opponent is ahead 2 pawns. They have a passed e-pawn, and they have an extra c-pawn that I do not have. I do have checks. For example, I have a check here on b6, but I think in that case, the bishop could block, or the king could move out of check. I also have this check here with the bishop on c5. Again, the opponent could block with their bishop or just move out of check. I have this check over here, but the king would just move out of check, I assume, to the corner. No, it couldn't take it because my queen is protecting that bishop. So it would just move to the corner. And then I don't think I would have a follow-up at that point. Yes, I would. Wow, okay. Well, it's a good thing that we check all these things. All right, let's go down the checklist. Okay, the checks are first. I think that's my best check because it is protected by the queen. And in that case, the king could not escape this way because my rook is cutting off the entire f file. So the king would have to go to the corner. And then I would take the rook, which would then be unprotected. And I think that would be checkmate. So let's do that. Okay, that was checkmate. Now, that puzzle was rated 1981. Let's go to the next puzzle. We're now averaging 3 minutes per puzzle in this video. And as always, I will try to remember to put the links to these individual puzzles in the description of this video. The little numbers down here at the bottom are links. If I right-click on those and copy the link, I can copy them into the description when I go to upload this video. Hopefully, that way, if you want to work your way through these puzzles as well, you can. All right, once again, let's check for checks. I do have 2 checks with the knight, but I think that's it. None of my other pieces can check. Knight to e2 doesn't seem great because the rook that just moved out of danger there can just go right back and capture that knight, and I think I would be stuck. This check here on h3 looks a little better. Not much better, but just a little better. I say that because when the Over here, the rook would just capture and that would be the end of it. Over here, the pawn would capture, which would open the king slightly. But then, I guess I would have I would have a follow-up check here that wins the rook. Is that it? Check? Now, they could move out of check. That's possible. They could just move out of check. But if they did, then what would I do? Yeah, I see. That might be the problem, because they might take with the pawn. And if they took with the pawn, I would have a check with queen to g5, and then when they moved out of check, either way, I would win the rook. But that brings up the question, they do not have to take with the pawn. So what would they do instead? If they moved over one, both their queen and their rook are guarding that pawn. So I don't think it would be in my best interest to take, because even though my queen is lined up there. So that might not be it either then. What else do I have? Do I have any captures? I do have a capture there and there. Oh, wait. No, that's not a check. That's not very forcing. That's foolhardy because the rook takes back. Okay, this puzzle is a little bit harder. I think we're going to go past my increased average time on this one. Yeah, those are my only two captures that I see. Nothing else can capture anything. Those are the only two checks that I can see. What threats can I make? Oh, I could move over one and threaten mate. But then wouldn't they just move that pawn forward? If I play queen to g5, they would just, I assume, move this pawn forward to keep me from checkmating there on g2. Then my knight would be in danger. But then I could check here without being in danger of being taken by the pawn. But then the king could just move forward. Wait. Threaten, checkmate. Their best defense, I think, is to move that pawn forward. They wouldn't have to, though. They could move this pawn forward, the f pawn, because then the rook would be guarding that square. But then I could check here, and my queen would be lined up to take the rook. They could push either one of those pawns to protect that square. If they pushed the g pawn, I would check over here, getting out of the way of my queen, and when their king moved out of that check, I would take the rook. If instead they played the f pawn, I could still do the same thing, check, and if they took or moved out of check, then I would take the rook. Is there any other way they can defend besides moving one of those two pawns after I play queen to g5? I suppose they could capture here with check, because they wouldn't be in check themselves. If they captured there with check, and I took back with my rook, then they could check here, and when I took back, would that be mate? No, it wouldn't, because my queen would be guarding that square now. Okay, I'm going to try queen to g5. This is something that I would not find in a game, I don't think. But an opponent might find it against me, because I've had some pretty sneaky opponents getting their knight down in here close and their queen lined up. But here again, the threat isn't really mate because they can protect against that. The threat is me moving my knight and getting the rook. I'm going to try that. If it's wrong, we'll find out why. That was right. And they did move the pawn. Well, the only reason that I did that is I assumed they would move one of those pawns and then I would check here with my knight and win the rook. So that just about has to be it. Okay. And I'm going to give up the knight for the rook, right? Because nothing's protecting the rook. Okay. I got a little nervous on that one. I didn't think that was going to be right. It seemed a little far-fetched, but it worked. Let's go to the next puzzle. Okay, I am playing with the white pieces in this puzzle. Looks like black has just taken my A pawn, but now the opponent has two passed pawns here, both of which are protected by rooks, although their rooks are in the way of those pawns. You know what, though? I just realized I have a free bishop here. That bishop's hanging. Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's protected by the pawn, but that pawn is pinned. What would they do if I took that bishop? Because it looks free to me knowing that that pawn is pinned. Their king can't come forward out of the pin because of my pawn here on h5. I didn't do the checklist right. I saw that free bishop because of the pinned pawn, but let me think about checks. I do have checks. I think that check is bad because they would capture. Do I have any other checks? No, I do not. I do not have any checks besides that one, and that one just loses a rook for a pawn. So I think I need to take this bishop because that's the only capture I have in this position besides these two pawns, either one of which I would lose a rook for a pawn. I think it's just taking the bishop. But what do they do if I take the bishop? Because they can't move the pawn. They could move the king to get out of the pin, but if they did that, then I could check. And then the pawn, my rook's no longer in danger from the pawn, and the king would have to come back up here. What else could they do after I took that? They could check me on the back rank because this rook would have moved. But if they checked me in the back rank, I could fairly easily block with the knight or move out of the way. I think block with the knight, because if I move out of the way, they would have this other check over here, and then that would be mate. Wait, I take the bishop, check down here, and I move to h2. Yeah, that would be checkmate. So if I took the bishop and they checked me here, I would have to block with the knight, and then they would not have a follow-up check, and I would just be up a piece. Okay, I'm going to take the bishop. They did check down there. Now, you saw what I said. My instinct was to go to h2, but I think that's checkmate. So I think I have to block with the knight. I could block with either rook, but that's bad because they'll just take those. Whichever one I block with, they'll take, and then they'll take the next one. So I think the knight block has to be it. It was. Okay. I don't know if this is the highest I've ever been rated in Lichess puzzles, but it's the highest I've been rated on Lichess in puzzles in a while. And I know I've gotten quite a few in a row now because my previous puzzle solving video, I had several in a row after missing an early one. And then the 2 videos before that, I had 6 or 4 in a row. So I think I'm doing pretty well, which again, as I mentioned in a previous video, let me click the next puzzle button. As I mentioned in a previous video, my personality type is such that when things go really well for a while, I start to assume that things are about to go poorly. I don't know if that's a flaw or a self-defense mechanism or what that is. Okay, for some reason, the opponent has moved their knight here. I could take it with my knight, but then that loses my queen. So I don't think I will take that because it loses my queen. I think I could take that with my rook, but then they could take back. I could take the bishop with my pawn. Oh no, then I'll lose my queen. Because yeah, that's the thing, my queen is under attack, right? Do I have any checks? You see how long it takes me to remember that. I do not have any checks because my rook can't get back there. I do not have a dark squared bishop and their king is on a dark square. None of my knights are close enough to check. So no, I do not have any checks, not even with my queen. Okay, do I have any captures? I do have a capture here and I have a capture here. Knight captures on e5, which as we've already mentioned would lose my queen. We have pawn captures on b5, which, as we've mentioned, would lose my queen. So my queen's in a bad spot. If I take the knight, looks like we lose the rook for a knight, and then what? What other captures? I just saw this capture. I have knight captures on b5, which then would lose my queen. Probably not with their queen because my bishop's right here. But wait. If knight captures on b5 and they take my queen... Wait, what was I thinking? Sorry, I had a thought there. If I take on b5 and they take my queen, I could take back with my bishop, but then they could take my bishop. Oh, but if they took my bishop, I would take their rook. This is one of those middle game puzzles that I definitely needed. Now, I don't know that I would ever get into this exact position because it looks like too many pieces are in danger. There are pieces in danger all over the place, and I normally don't play this way. I just don't, but... it's possible I could get into this situation, so I need to figure it out. Can I just move my queen? Like, there? Wouldn't that get it out of danger? And then if they took, I would take down there, and if they took back, I would take down there, and that would be checkmate. So maybe it's just moving my queen to e6, but then they would take here, I assume, and then I don't know what I would have. I guess I would take it back. Remember what I said when this puzzle began, that my natural tendency is to think things are about to go wrong, and it looks like they are. It looks like I am not going to solve this puzzle. Okay, I think we've looked, and I do not have any checks. We've looked, and my captures all look like they turn out badly. What threats do I have? This moving the queen out of danger idea, queen to e6, it's kind of a threat, because if they move the knight, then I would take, and when they took back, I would take with my rook. But that's not really a threat, because I think they just wouldn't move their knight. In fact, they would probably move their bishop to c4 to point at my queen. So, can I just take... Wait, did we already discuss this? If I just take the knight with my rook, what happens? Take the knight with my rook. They take back with their rook. I wouldn't take back with my knight because their bishop would be pointing at my queen through there. Is there something obvious I'm missing? What am I missing? What if I just drop my queen back? But then they take the knight and I take back, and they've gained a pawn with tempo. No, if they move If they move the knight, I'll take that rook. So if I drop back here, they might take this way, but then I would take back. And again, if they moved the knight, I would take their rook, take back, and then, I don't know. All right. Well, hopefully some of you have already figured out what the answer is or already know, because either you've seen this situation before or something. But yeah, I can't figure it out. I'm even trying to think about what if I'm going to take the bishop and then we'll find out what the answer is. Yeah, that wasn't it. Was it taking there? No. Was it taking there? No, of course not. Was it moving over? No. Was it moving up here? No. Was it moving further up here? No. Was it moving back? No. I've run out of ideas. Oh no, was it that? Oh, it was that. And then they were going to take it. And then what was I going to do? If I take with my knight, they take my queen, and then I don't have anything. I was taking the bishop. Wait, that was it? Let's restart that puzzle. It was taking this, and then when they took back, taking the bishop. So I got 2 pieces for a rook. And I'm probably going to get that on the next turn if they don't move it. And if they do move it, then I have that pawn. Okay, I can handle that. It just looked hopeless to me, so that's what happened. All right, next puzzle. I'm still doing pretty good on the rating compared to what I have in the past. All right, I'm playing with the black pieces, but my opponent has a queen right here. If I take the bishop, then they just take that, right? Or I could check them. I could check, but then they'll take that with their... Wait, why wouldn't it just be taking this? Because they would take back, and I would have these 2 pieces for their against their queen. I guess their queen would be more powerful than those 2 pieces. Okay, well, what else do I have? I have a check here with my rook. I have a check with my bishop. I think that's it. Oh, I have this check with my rook too. That one might come in handy. Oh, wow. I also saw that actually isn't checkmate because my bishop's guarding that square. Wow. Okay. So I'm not quite as worried as I was. But yeah, I shouldn't take this because that's a bad trade for me because it leaves their queen against these 2 pieces, the rook and the bishop. So let's go back to checks. 1, 2, 3 checks in this position. Well, let's just take them one by one. What does the opponent do in the event of the bishop check? Well, they couldn't move over or come up here, so they would have to go... If I checked on d4, the opponent would have to go to f1. Then I would have multiple follow-up checks like bishop to g2, protected by the rook, but then the king would get toward my rook. I would have the follow-up check of rook to d1 at that point, but then the king could come here. Okay, I don't like that the king has an option each time and I would have to follow it, but I might come back to that if the others don't work out. Let's go with this check. If I check with the rook on d1 now, their king has 2 options to get out of check. I don't know which one it would choose. I assume it would choose h2 because then it could always hide back here, I suppose, if I kept checking. What about rook to g2 check, protected by my light squared bishop? That would leave the king only 2 legal moves, h1 or f1. If it went to h1, then I could just move my rook and it would be check again from the bishop. Then the king would have to come up here and then I could check again with the rook and we'd kind of have a windmill type situation. That one looks better. But what happens if the king goes to f1? Because I couldn't follow up check with my bishop because then that would leave my rook hanging. Let's go back to this. Bishop to d4 check. Then that leaves only 1 legal move coming toward my king. Then I would have 3 possible follow-up checks. So this is the situation that we're in. If I went and checked with my light squared bishop down on g2, the king would just come toward my rook. But if the king went to f1, which it would have to, and I followed up with my rook, then the king could go over or go back. I don't like any of these. I might fail this puzzle too, because it looks like the king can get out of it, no matter which one of these I do. I don't know. I'm going to play rook to g2 check, because none of these look any better than the others. That was not it. That was not it. Okay, it was the bishop one. All right, and now we have, as I've said, 3 choices of checks to follow that up with, and it looked like the king just gets out. If I check down here with the bishop, it moves closer to my rook. If I check down with my rook, it moves closer to my rook. If I check here with my rook, it has to move over one way or the other, and then I'm just stuck there. Wait, I can check again with my bishop here, but then it moves closer to my rook. Oh, but then I check here. Wait, that was it? Then it's just going to move again. Okay, let's restart this one. See if I can even remember that. It was the check with the bishop. Then it was this check with the bishop. Then it was this check with the rook. And that was the end of the puzzle, despite the king just easily being able to move. Right, it's not, I don't think it's going to go that way, because if it goes to f1, I can just start capturing things with a discovered check. So it's going to go here, and then, oh, and now I'm going to take the knight, because my rook and my knight are pointing at it. Okay, so I would take the knight, and then the queen's going to go here and check me, and I'm going to block with the bishop. And then the queen has multiple choices to go over there, but now I have a rook and 2 bishops for a queen. Oh, and now it's saying I can just go ahead and take that pawn because the bishop is also guarding it. Okay, so the puzzle didn't go far enough, in my opinion. Let's restart this puzzle one more time. It didn't go far enough for me to understand what why this was the solution, because I knew it wasn't mate. Because we go there, and that was the end. But the fact is that the opponent had a huge difference between those two choices. One leads to mate in 4, and one just leaves me with a slight advantage. And then I have a huge difference between my next moves as well, this being the best one. And if it had gone on, I might have looked around and realized I could have taken the knight with my bishop. But I was supposed to see that from the original starting position, and I'm just not going to. Okay, so I don't remember what my rating over there said when I started this video, but I've solved 4 in a row and then lost 2 in a row. And those 2 that I lost were both more than 20 points. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you got something out of this. I feel like I didn't. I feel like the 4 that I solved, were a couple of them were almost too easy, and a couple I feel like I got by accident. And then these last 2, I felt like they were beyond me. They're not rated any different than the ones that I solved, but I don't think I still might not be able to win this game. Even if I got to this point by accident and then I took that knight, I still might not win this game. That's just how I feel about it. So, but anyway, we'll see you next time.